Good day. I'm Dermot Hurley. I'm a professor of social work at King's University College in London, Ontario, Canada. And today I'll be presenting on eco-anxiety in youth, promoting resilience and positive mental health. For over 30 years, climate scientists have been predicting the terrible consequences of climate change in the 21st century, and that large parts of the world are dangerously close to being unable to adapt to catastrophic climate change, despite the warnings by the UN, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or other IPCC. From a global perspective, it raises fundamental questions of environmental justice and equity, particularly for people living in parts of Africa, Asia, and South America, who contribute least to global warming but pay the greatest price in human suffering. The sixth IPCC assessment report in 2022 documents the effects of climate crisis on people's mental health and raises the alarm to an even higher level of warning that we are running out of time and options towards becoming climate resilient. The scientific evidence is unequivocal. Climate change is a threat to human well-being and the health of the planet. Any further delay is concerted global action will miss a brief and rapidly closing window to secure a livable future. This has led to the surfacing of understandable feelings of despair, helplessness, and eco-anxiety, especially among young people in communities around the world. The growing impact of the ongoing climate crisis is impossible to ignore, not least on the emotional well-being of children and youth who are experiencing profound eco-emotions and climate anxiety. With 24/7 news cycles and current social media saturation, doom scrolling habits have become the norm for many youth. Caroline Hickman at the University of Bath in the UK surveyed 10,000 children along with colleagues in 10 countries and reported that 50% of respondents said that, quote, their feelings about climate change, sad, anxious, powerless, and guilt negatively affected their daily life and functioning. That was a 2021 paper. Dealing with climate anxiety and developing emotional resilience requires initiatives at multiple levels, including targeted education and healthcare, dissemination of correct scientific information, environmental activism, and lobbying of environmental protection agencies. Institutions of higher learning in the social sciences can play a significant role in contributing to ideas and interventions to ameliorate the effects of the current climate emergency. For example, eco-psychological interventions that promote emotional resilience by helping young people handle climate anxiety through individual and collective initiatives have shown a remarkable positive impact on the mental well-being of youth. The goal of these interventions is to help youth overcome climate anxiety by identifying and challenging eco-anxiety and feelings of powerlessness, focusing instead on solutions and actions on a micro or macro level to affect climate change. Teaching resilience in the face of uncertainty is an essential life skill in the context of climate crisis. The Canadian Association of Social Workers recently developed a position paper with the following statement, quote, social workers have a very important role in humanizing climate change by highlighting the ways that it is intricately tied to social inequities and how that impacts individuals and communities at the most fundamental level, the right to be who you are, unquote. Social work practitioners deal with the effects of climate change on vulnerable populations, including refugees and displaced persons, poor people living in areas vulnerable to changing climate, and communities that are experiencing catastrophic climate events. Promoting resilience in youth exposed to climate crisis is a multidimensional process involving the interaction of complex connections between individual, relational, cultural, and socio-political systems. Social work, a profession concerned with ecosystems, has been slow to adopt a coherent, informed position on global warming. And this is especially true of social work educators and researchers who have only just begun to integrate climate science and psychosocial consequences of catastrophic climate events into social work curricula. There are some exceptions, such as Stony Brook University in the US that offers a course on social work and the environment. San Diego State University offers a specialization in social work, environment, and community engagement. And there's a course by Peter Jones on ecological literacy for social workers from James Cook University in Australia. Taking a look at some of the current literature, a number of authors and researchers, and here I'll just name a few: Dominelli, 2012, Shaw, 2013, Botteo and Bell in 2015, and Androff in 2016, have been concerned about ecological and environmental issues in social work for some time, as well as the importance of environmental justice in social work. A study by Shaw in 2011 challenged the notion of social work as a green profession and found that among 1,000 respondents, almost 68% had no formal social work education related to social justice and the environment. Similar findings were reported by others who noted a lack of environmental content in social work education. That was Ramsey and Boddy in 2017. There are growing calls in the literature for greater inclusion of environmental justice in social work curricula, such as the Council on Social Work Education, and particularly with vulnerable populations. As society experiences the effects of climate change, contaminated drinking water, inadequate food sources, and other environmental hazards, social workers are increasingly being called upon to address environmental injustices in their practices with vulnerable populations. The International Social Work Curriculum is now tasked with meeting this practice need through inclusion of environmental justice in course content to ensure that social workers are better prepared for environmental social work practice. In sum, social work education needs to make a shift whereby departments and schools create as a priority the inclusion of environmental issues and catastrophic climate events in their curriculum. And social work faculty are being urged to incorporate this content in a number of different policy and practice social work courses. So the study that we're currently involved with, the present study, examines the views of social work students and faculty members at universities in Canada, Spain, and Ireland by 3 co-investigators who are engaged with promoting resilience and mental health among youth. The study aims to identify core themes for informing curricula in social work education related to interventions to promote resilience in order to better manage eco-anxiety in children and youth. The present study, which began at the conceptual level in 2021, involved the collaboration between 3 universities to undertake a 3-site study examining the effects of climate emergencies on vulnerable populations. The principal investigator from Canada conducted meetings with faculty members in Spain and Ireland to compile and review literature on climate anxiety in each of the 3 locations. To that end, we have developed a Likert-style resilience questionnaire to be administered to social work students in each university, examining the concept of eco-anxiety and resilience. The 3 investigators are carrying out focus groups with social work students to determine the feasibility of greening the social work curriculum, with a particular emphasis on eco-anxiety, youth, and resilience. The methodology includes the following components. 1, a PowerPoint presentation and lecture to students on the effects of climate change on vulnerable populations who are overrepresented in social work practice. The presentation highlights international as well as local conditions related to climate crisis. Students are then asked to respond to a number of questions in the form of reflection papers, which will be analyzed thematically for key themes related to eco-anxiety and resilience. Participants are then asked to complete a resilience self-evaluation checklist, as well as a worries about climate change checklist. 2, a series of voluntary focus groups using a generative conversational process to further explore thematic findings from earlier student reflection papers. Generative dialogue is one of the core elements of the collaborative inquiry approach and is a highly effective method of group interaction that invites student participants to remain engaged, trusting, and mutually respectful when working on a common goal. The lack of any judgmental criticism, combined with mutual purposeful interaction throughout the process, empowers participants to share responsibility in developing new knowledge and in setting common goals. We're collecting important cross-cultural data, which allows us to identify emerging themes using a variant of interpretive phenomenological analysis, which is particularly suitable to ethnographic research. The three investigators have extensive involvement in qualitative research in the past, resulting in a number of publications on resilience and mental health. We anticipate a high level of student engagement in this topic, as all three universities have students whose families have been significantly affected by dramatic climate events in their countries of origin, and some have been through the reality of displacement and dislocation as a consequence of dramatic climate changes. It should be noted that the end of the presentation deals with potential solutions to climate crisis, including advocacy and other measures to mitigate the effects of climate change and eco-anxiety. The findings from the study are not yet available, as we are still in the early stages of recruitment, but expect to be able to publish the results of the study sometime in 2023. We look forward to sharing those results with you at that time. Thank you for listening.